So, hello and peace be upon you. Thank you for joining my live happiness and Islam question answer. Let me give it a quick intro in, let's say, about a minute. Let's give it a minute for an intro. Um, what is it about? It's about you don't have to be a Muslim to practice these universal ideas that will easily make your life better. Um, it's about logic. So one core idea I want to get across is that religion should not be illogical. It should make sense because God made us and God made us fairly logical when we're not too emotional. Um, and yeah, there's so many things I want to get across. So I get a lot of feedback. This is a very chilled out session. And some of the feedback, like recently, is like one person said to me today that maybe I should, in the title of the video, I should say happiness and Islam, not just happiness Q&A. I, I was explaining that it's always about Islam, but sometimes that doesn't come across. So that was important for that person because they felt like I should be possibly before they were like clear about that. It's a friend of mine. They were saying maybe I didn't take everybody's points of view on board, and wasn't like a news anchor person. I wasn't like you know trying to be neutral, but I'm not trying to be neutral. This is a show which I'm doing out of love for humanity, which is trying to find the easy way to happiness. I'm not trying to say, oh, that's a really nice idea, and I'll just agree with that if I think that doesn't really help you get to happiness fast. So, and the final part of my intro, there's always something I want to say each time, but let's say the final thing I want to say is I'm planning on talking about, but that can definitely change depending on your question. So this is a live show, whatever, if you got a question, please do ask. Please feel free to not be agreeable. I'm actually literally finding people who would argue with me, because argument doesn't have to be a bad thing if you're respectful and come from a place of love. Anyway, what am I thinking about talking about? I love giving a happiness tip from Islam in the first 10 minutes. I've already gone past my intro limit, but anyway, then I love talking about personal issues of people that I've come across. This one is about I can't go to sleep easily even though I'm successful. What's the root of that? What's Islam's answer? Then I love talking about what I'm seeing on YouTube from other people, famous people like Jordan Peterson, who's a clinical psychologist, and he comes with a lot of facts behind what he's got to say. What do I think about his opinion on how to be successful? I talked about that a little bit last time, finding a purpose. I think it relates kind of to finding a purpose that resonates with you personally. So that's something I might want to talk about. Does religion have to be scientific? Is another topic. So I have these different sections: personal, alternative ideas, and comparing Islam to it. Then comparing Islam to uh, other religions, and then talking about big issues, because when I start with personal, I want to go to the other side and go big, and then misunderstandings about Islam, like should we have gender roles? So that's very interesting thing about Islam. So let's get on with it. Let's talk about a happiness tip that will quickly improve your life. And in the past, in the last few shows, I've been talking about more obvious things, I think, but I want to get across this idea that everything in this show will help you. Everything in Islam will help you, even the things that aren't obvious. So your eating habits. When a person, this is a saying of Prophet Muhammad, when a person, peace be upon him, when a person eats sparingly, he fills his inside with light. Okay, so uh, there are different ways of explaining this, but let's say, why do we overeat in the West? Let's start with that, because we're unhappy. It's like any other addiction. Why do people take drugs? It's not because they're already happy, right? And so there are all sorts of addictions, and if you look into the modern research for addiction, it's because we're feeling disconnected. It's another way of saying we're unhappy, because disconnection is a key factor in making you really unhappy. Okay, if you talk to psychologists, it's not just my opinions. I'll keep repeating this kind of stuff. And if somebody asks me about it, we can talk about it in more detail. But basically, we overeat because we're unhappy, we're bored, we're discontent, we're trying to fill the void. That's why there's so many like extreme food shows. We're just like, it's food, like just eat it, you know. It's not the beginning end of life like some food shows make it out to be. Uh, so that's one side of things where we're trying to fill a void. Now, if you control that habit, then you'll begin. If you control that habit, but also do the other spiritual practices I'm talking about. For example, being grateful, being giving. What's the word for that? I can't remember the word. What's the saying of Prophet Muhammad? It's the people who yeah, people who give the most. I can't remember the word for giving, but anyway, people who give a lot are the ones who will find happiness or will enter paradise. So when you will find that when you start practicing this is myself, I hate overeating. I start feeling nauseous. People who fast a lot, so I fast once a week, and I don't do it just as a sort of let's say a plain spiritual idea where I do it because it practically helps me in my life, and I'll talk about that in a few seconds. But when you start practicing these things, you become more aware of the subtleties of happiness. And by filling yourself up with food, what you do, and there's a great talk about that kind of mentions this a little bit, famous TED talk, loves my TED talks, okay, TED, which says that the reason why we eat, I think I'm kind of repeating myself here, the reason why we eat is because we're unhappy. But what that does is it numbs your feelings. When you take any sort of drug or something that is designed to give you a short-term burst of serotonin, I think it was, the chemical, I can't remember, dopamine, whatever, it's all the same. Well, it's not all the same, but same idea, right? Chemicals that give you short-term burst of happiness. What they do is they dull your feelings as well, so you can't really absorb true happiness. So what this saying is, light is about guidance, it's about finding your way, it's being aware, it's being in touch. That's what light is in spiritual terms. It's like you're in a dark room and you've got the light on. If you've got the light on, you know where you're going, you don't feel lost, you feel happier. And that's how life is. When you everything in this show, it's about big and small issues, about navigating life. And so you will feel that when you control your eating habit. You can practice this. You don't have to believe me. I feel this all the time. I feel like dead when I eat too much. And anybody who knows me, I don't eat too much, or I do eat regularly. And I actually try to control how much I eat by drinking more water. Well, just boiled water with a bit of, herbal whatever in it. But you will feel that. And people who fast a lot or eat a lot less, they feel a lot more alert. I've seen on videos and things like that. You will find that. So you can practice that. You can, fasting, by the way, is really popular. And there's loads of YouTube videos on it and the benefits of fasting. You'll probably find that's as one of the benefits. You feel more aware. And I did say I was going to talk about the reasons for me fasting. So one of the many reasons I fast is because I know because I work really hard all the time on things I'm interested in, I know that I get in the habit over the week of eating too much. It becomes more and more and more, and then I do like a full stop, like on Mondays fast, which means don't eat from sunrise to sunset in the Muslim way of doing things. So I'm trying to do things in 10-minute chunks, and I will now move on to the next thing. So personal issues. So I cannot go to sleep easily, even though I'm really successful, like in business. Okay. So I talked to this person and I said, for example, do you talk to people after like there's a like late evening, basically? Okay. So why did I ask that? Well, first of all, Islamic teaching is do not talk to people after evening prayers, that Isha prayers it's called. Maybe I'll use a few words, Islamic words, and then people who want to get used to the lingo and find out more things. So ISHAA, maybe, I don't know if you want to spell it like that. I'll put things here. Let me make this big as well. I'm trying to present things better doing these shows, very chilled out shows where I know I'm going to be doing lots of things, not as perfectly as I could. So this is an idea. Maybe I could put it up on the banner there or something. Anyway, so yeah, don't talk after the late evening prayers. That's supposed to be sort of like a full stop to your day, not a full stop to your day, but very much a shutdown of your day. So I don't message people, WhatsApping people. I don't talk to people. I don't reply to emails after that, because when you do that, your brain is way too engaged, and you probably so. I love to talk about this thing about understanding or taking cues from these spiritual teachings. So if you're already being told don't talk to people, that means do less strenuous things. Like I don't program, for example. Programming, very hefty thinking. I love my programming. I really enjoy it, but it's it's very intense, and it's not a good way of shutting down before you go to sleep. So you need to calm down before you go to sleep. Otherwise, you won't be calm enough to sleep properly. And sleeping is so important to rejuvenate your body. Yeah. So teaching of Islam is, and I can Google these things if you want. I sometimes do that on the show, but I'm trying to keep things a little bit short. So don't do that. Also, another thing that helps you, rather than waiting till the end of the day to be in a calm state, if you've had a bad day the whole day and you're doing things that are not good for you the whole day, it's very hard to shut down anyway, right? So there are 5 times during the day in which Muslims are told to essentially shut down as well. Okay, they're like mini breaks. So we as human beings, we can often be very greedy. The word I was looking for was generous. Yeah, the generous of the. There's a saying of Prophet Muhammad. I'll say it. I'll quickly say it because I think I've got a bad habit of like interrupting myself and then going off in tangents. It's always practice for me every day. So paradise is the abode of the generous. Okay, which basically means, in one way, you'll be happier if you're generous. Anyway, let's get back to it. So the 5 prayers that Muslims do are really short, by the way. If you want 5-10 minutes of your day, like 5 meditations, and you start your day off like that. That way you're like you calm yourself before you start getting crazy. And what I was going to say a bit ago is that human beings are really greedy. They want more and more and more. And that's what we are. That's what I'm like. Okay, I want to do more and more in one day. So I start off with a pause, with a sort of purpose and a thought. Where am I going today? When I'm praying in the morning, it really helps to, let's say, center me, right? And then I rock it off into my project, and then I have a second pause before I go too crazy, right? And then I've slowed down again and speed up again to the next prayer. Now, some prayers, like especially in the short days, they can be combined. If you want to learn about that, you can ask me. But yeah, you can even reduce the prayers to like 3 different times in the day, especially in short days. You might be thinking, the days are so short. If I stop 5 times in one day, you won't get a chance to do anything, and that's kind of true. And that's why Islam is very clever in that sense. Okay, it adapts the timings of the prayers according to the season, as it were. Okay, how short the days are. Okay, right. So that helps. Another thing is that there are so many elements to this. 15 past, yeah. There's so many elements. The next element that comes to me is the nature of materialism, and there's a part of the Quran which describes the people who are who don't depend on God but depend on materialism to find their happiness. Okay, and you might say, I'm religious. That's not about me. Okay, I'm suffering from that. I'm religious. Okay, I spend loads of my time doing things like this which don't make me money. Yet I am constantly drawn by materialistic greed and all this kind of stuff. So I think all of these things apply to just about everybody. Okay, before anybody thinks that, oh, I'm religious, this doesn't count. So in Islam or in the Quran, which is a guide for life for all humanity, it says the case of the disbelievers, the people who don't believe in God truly and base their life on God, is a case of somebody, or is the case of a thirsty person who chases a mirage, and when they arrive at the mirage, just like the nature of a mirage, they realize there's nothing there. That's what a mirage is. It's not really there. It looks like a shimmering bit of water in the distance. When you reach there, it's not there. It's not like you see a mirage under your feet. That's not how mirages work. I don't think so anyway. Okay, and then it's a constant cycle. What I mean by that, and what's it got to do with not being able to sleep at night? Not being able to sleep at night is that basically you need to keep wanting to do more. Like you're saying, oh my gosh, I'm not done enough today. Again, I always say this, I suffer from this all the time. Like, I feel like every time I meet a target, like this person, he's meeting his targets, he's successful, right? Okay, I meet a target and then I want to do more. It's like, oh no, it's not all about that. You just achieve that thing, maybe do a little bit more if you're being a bit greedy, yeah, but don't believe that what you are doing is the thing that's going to make a massive difference to your life. It's God. Okay. So I got a question. I'll be answering that in 2 minutes. Thank you. I can see the question. Just want to tell you, because last time there was a problem that my daughter, 8-year-old daughter, asked a question, who's asked a question there, and it didn't come through. So that's interesting. Hopefully nobody else is suffering from that problem. Anyway, so there's an element of materialism which drives you to endlessly rush for the next thing, to do more and do more and more. That is not going to help you sleep well. You have to control that. How do you control that? To be aware that God is the sustainer of your world. What does that mean? God is the one. Okay, so I'll throw in an Arabic word here and there. I don't know. God describes himself as Rabb. Okay, which means the sustainer, the maintainer of the world. When you're aware that, let's start off with this, that there's a water cycle, and that's purifying your water all the time. Like your air, where is that coming from? You're breathing it so easily. Okay, you become more and more aware that there is a very powerful force that is keeping you alive. So if that's true, then the very existence of your job and your success is coming from God. He's sustaining you. Your job didn't come out from nowhere. Okay. If there was no air, your job would not exist. I mean, if there was very little air, your job would not exist. Like, people wouldn't be buying your stuff because they'll be too worried about breathing air, and you would be too worried about breathing air. So all these things will help you. But there's one more thing I want to throw in the last few seconds, is that it's very important. If you want to be happy, there are two things you need to do. And the Quran is always about this, right? You need to believe in God. So that makes your awareness that it's not all up to you. It's God taking care of you. There is a plan, blah, blah. The second element is do good things, because if you can't, belief in the sort of vacuum is useless. When you do things, you're practicing your belief. You're proving your belief to yourself, because we often lie to ourselves. Anyway, thank you for the question. So let's, Sam, Sally, assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam, peace be upon you. I will come to your question in a second, Sam. Sally, let's go to the first question. I'm going to spend 10 minutes on this, and I'll spend 10 minutes, because I'm trying to do things in 10-minute chunks. Maybe I'll go for 5 minutes, actually. Let's go for 5 minutes. So, can a Muslim woman do many jobs like truck and motorbike driving and weight lifting? Okay, cool. Great question. So, there's a lot of, let's say, I don't want to call it misunderstanding. There's a misunderstanding about, there's not a full understanding about the role of women in Islam. It's as if they're trapped in the house. Okay. You will find that very much of the many of the times, women are the bosses of the household. Okay. Men go out, do the work, and they listen to their wives who run the house, run the children, whatever. They're in charge. So it's kind of very misunderstanding. Yet at the same time, overall, men are in charge, but they're told to be the most patient as well, because they're in charge, overall in charge. Okay, when direction needs to be taken. That's very important. Okay, but anyway, I think I'm getting distracted. I'm not answering the question. Can they? Yes, they can be truck drivers and motorbike drivers. It's not exactly like a truck driver. You don't actually have to have much energy to do that. But then there's the question of, should women have jobs at all, right? And Islam really puts stress on women, not working and being more concerned with taking care of the house. So when I say Islam puts stress on women not working, it does all sorts of, it gives all sorts of financial incentives, okay, to not work. It says, for example, if so any money that a woman earns, she does not have to spend on her family. That's kind of a reverse financial incentive, in the sense that, like, it does not help your family if you go to work, for example. Okay, so this is just a small element of it. Okay, also, so taking care of the family is so important and is so undervalued in Western society, so much so that there are so many problems. People are not very good at communicating in a lot of Western society, because they're not good at expressing their emotion. That's because they were not properly taken care of as children. They have very little emotional connection with other human beings. Their parents often leave their children in daycare, whatever you call nursery, and all that, taken care of by professionals. That's not a real connection. Okay, there are a lot of problems with that. Okay, so in 1 minute, I'm going to finish this answer. Also, women are treated like beautiful glass crystal, trying to use the words of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Okay, basically taken taking women as fragile beings, and people go, oh, we're not fragile, like in Hollywood movies, women are like action heroes, and that's not real women, right? Okay. And a lot of women will tell you this, especially when they're doing lots of hard work, like work. I know teachers who say this even in class. They say they'll be so happy not to work. They'll be so happy to find a rich man who can just pay their bills because they're desperate not to work. Because physically, women are much weaker. I'm not here to be politically correct. I'm trying to help society, and society's gone in a way where we're told a false story of, women can do everything. Well, actually, if you're doing everything, you're miserable. So that's not a good way to live your life. Let's get back. Let's get to. I should click. So that was the last question. And then here's a new question. Oh, that's not the question. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum means peace be upon you. That's the Muslim way of saying hello. In fact, it's the Jewish and the old Christian way of saying peace be upon you. It's like a really nice way of saying hello. Just curious, are you serving as a Murabbi Silsila? Okay, so what this person is asking is, so I'm part of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, which is an international Muslim organization, which has a leader called a Khalifa. So we're like the most, probably the most organized community. And within that, we have we pay in money, and we've got paid people who work full time to make the world a better place. And those people are sometimes known as murabbis. Okay. I'm not sure what silsila means, actually. Sorry, that's kind of like a. You could explain that to me, Sam, Sally, maybe. It's just, I think it means like the local or national. I'm not sure. Some sort of basically murabbi, yeah. And so no, I'm not. Sure, I should give a quick answer. No, I'm not. Okay. So that's an interesting question, and I'm always trying to read between the lines about why somebody might ask the question so that I can answer it better. And so a lot of people think that sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, this is not the purpose, right? It's just like I'm trying to answer your question as best as possible. So some people think that and I get this impression a lot, that only these people called the murabbis, these kind of missionaries or kind of official members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, should be explaining Islam into the public, for example, which is not based on Islam. That's not an Islamic idea at all. And in fact, I mean, for those people who are worried, they have a kind of, how do I describe it in the easiest way? They have, let's say, I don't want to call it simple, maybe simple way of understanding how like religion works. They'll say, I'm looking for X figurehead to tell me the truth, and then I'll understand it. I can't understand it if somebody else explains it to me, even if it's logical. Okay, so for that kind of person, the Khalifa, the international head himself, wrote me a letter after sending somebody to investigate my project, which is this live stream, whatever, which I had actually stopped at that point for whatever reason, long story, and he told me to continue it. So the person in charge of the Ahmadi Muslim community has got me to do this. So that's if there's a rubber stamp that's needed, there's one for you. What else could I say about this? Oh, yes. So the reason why it's not an Islamic idea that only these people called the murabbis should be, in public explaining everything, is that Prophet Muhammad, not really Prophet, rewind, wrong words. The fourth Khalifa, for example, said that our job is to change the world, do a revolution. And that would not be possible. It's not mathematically possible if it was just these murabbis who are doing all the work. They're just really administrators. And it's the job of every single Ahmadiyya Muslim, which is like the revolutionary type of Muslim, if you want to change the world with love, our motto is love for all, hatred for none. It's the job of every single person to get two other people to become Muslim. And become Muslim means to like basically offer them light. So the way the fourth Khalifa, currently we have the fifth Khalifa, but the fourth Khalifa said, every Ahmadi Muslim should be like a candle in the dark. And his job is to pass on his light to two other people. And that way we can grow exponentially. And we, as in the Corona times, we totally understand what exponential growth is all about, right? We have this R factor. So your R factor, our replication factor needs to be 2, which would be awesome. Anyway, so thank you for that question. Really appreciate you joining in. That's really nice. Please ask questions. Please disagree with me. I've actually invited, let's see, somebody who said they would disagree with me, like point. Okay, so I'm going to point out his question, and maybe he would join in. Maybe he's watching. I don't know. Waiting for that bit. So maybe I'll skip to that. I don't know. Or maybe I'll just keep to the order until he comes. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna stop thinking. I'm gonna skip to that person's comment, and maybe he will join in. So he said, I'm gonna copy this, and maybe I will. Oh, I've never pasted a comment in my own comment section. Will that work? Is that too many letters? I don't know. I'm not even sure. I don't think that's worked. No, sorry. Oh, it shows in 2 parts. I pasted it. And that's cool. So I'm pretty new with all this technology as well. Is the corona virus being used to cover up a power shift? Okay, so before I continue, some of you might go, okay, I'm not interested in, what has that got to do with happiness though? Like, what is this? Because a lot of people, let's call it a conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, don't believe, there's something dodgy going on about this whole corona thing. Okay, they think that. What's that got to do with happiness? Well, look what it's doing to the world. If we can't, I want to resolve these big problems, or help resolve these big problems as much as we can as individuals, and we can make a big difference, because when we do, we solve a lot of these problems. Okay, so let's get back to the question. I mean, a lot of massive economic problems that are potentially going to make a lot of people miserable. I think I started the sentence and now I'm finishing it. Anyway, so is the coronavirus being used to cover up a power shift from being watched to now living in a totalitarian state where it is illegal to wander on the streets unless with good reason? It is a quick way of forcefully bringing people into the technology age through mass unemployment. So a couple of things there, I will explain as I go along, because not everybody will necessarily. Oh, I should have clicked on that as well. That was the second part. Okay, so let me go to the first part again. I'm going to break it down just in case people don't know certain words. So yeah, so we're being watched, totalitarian state. That just means like where you've got one leader who has total control of the country. Okay, where it is illegal to wander the streets unless with good reasons. Okay, so let's talk about that. And then there's a new idea I've never heard about before, which is forcing people into the technology age. So do we have a totalitarian state? So that presupposes that basically coronavirus is fake. It doesn't exist. Probably. I think it presupposes that, because if you believe the coronavirus exists, then you'd appreciate that we need a lockdown. Possibly, it would make some sense. It's not ludicrous, at least. It's not like. So that's one question. Do you not believe that coronavirus exists? So if you don't believe it, that means you're not believing all the doctors out there. And disagree with me, please. Even if I'm like I asked somebody to the person who asked this question to come on and disagree with me. So, but I need help. Like, what part of the evidence do you not believe that lets you believe that coronavirus is not real? You're basically saying that there's thousands of doctors in the British National Health Service, the NHS, who are conspiring, a part of this conspiracy, who, like, they must be aware that, like if, sorry, I don't know why I'm stopping and starting. So they're part of this conspiracy, according to you. Thousands of doctors who are hiding the truth. Because if there was no coronavirus, they probably would have known. And I know a lot of these doctors are part of our family or friends and stuff, and they believe that coronavirus exists. So then the question comes about, how do you know about anything? Like, how do you find out truths about anything? How do you know an atom exists? You asked a scientist who wrote in a book, and you believed it. Do you deny the existence of atoms, even though you've never seen it? So you have to think about, what are your approaches to finding out facts about things you don't know directly. So that's part of it, okay? And the second thing is, yeah, so I'm going to go back to highlighting some of the points I thought about when I saw this question. Let's scroll. Is this conspiracy against those countries that didn't lock down properly? Because that's what you're saying in another way. Because there are lots of countries, let's say New Zealand, who don't have a problem with corona. They don't have corona. Like, they might have one and then it dies out, because they had a proper lockdown. I could talk about what a proper lockdown is, because in Islam we were actually told about how to do a proper lockdown. Okay, I'll talk about it very briefly. It is so logical. In Islam it says, if there's corona, oh sorry, if there's a plague, that's just been an infectious disease in a place, don't go there. And if you're in a place where there is that infectious disease, the plague, as it were, then don't leave it. So effectively, you stay in a bubble and you wait till the disease dies out, because that's, corona does die out over 2 weeks, okay? And then you're free. And you can actually be quite free within that space. So schools can continue within that bubble, that locality. I'm saying bubble because we're using that word a lot in England. Like, that means like a closed off group of people. Anyway, I'm not sure when I started this answer. I'll go on for 3 more minutes. Okay, so that's that. Suspicion versus fact. So another teaching in Islam, it goes something like, beware, do not indulge in suspicion. This is paraphrasing. Do not indulge in suspicion, for suspicion can sometimes lead to falsehood. That's a beautiful way of saying it. Let me break that down. So suspicion is like when you don't really know the facts. Okay, so when you don't know the fact, I was having a discussion with my wife downstairs. We were talking about being able to discuss ideas, being able to think. We need that freedom to think. Okay, we need freedom to work out. So I'm not saying don't think, don't use your brain, suspicion, everything is suspicion. No, not everything is suspicion, right? When you have enough facts, it's no longer suspicion, right? So I'm interested in what your facts are. Okay, do you have enough facts to make those conclusions? Because it's really dangerous, the conclusion, if there is a corona, and there seems to be lots of evidence that there is, and if you're saying that it doesn't exist, it's really dangerous and damaging for the world that you say it doesn't exist when it does exist, because then more people are going to get it. Okay, so it's not a small thing. And then there's a question of organization versus anarchy. Islam is very much about listening to your leader, even if your leader is stupid, because it's much better to be working in an organized fashion than be in anarchy. But anyways, in the last minute, I want to talk about this very interesting thing, fascinating little comment about, it's a quick way, it started from the other page here. It's a quick way of forcefully bringing people into the technology age. Very interesting. So for a long time, a lot of non-website based companies have been going down way before the pandemic. Okay, high street shops, especially those selling technology, have been in trouble for so many years. And now, during the corona period, technology companies that properly embraced technology and websites and whatever, like Amazon, are doing extremely well. So this is an interesting idea, but it's kind of looking at things backwards. It's like this was already happening, and it was just a matter of time. And these companies are companies that did not embrace technology are in trouble. Now, another way of looking at it is like, okay, so I mean, there were other things to this chat, and it's basically saying the government sees themselves as an employer and they just want to make money. So in fact, what they want is the best for you. They want you to be involved in technology if this theory is true. And maybe you should be motivated. Therefore, it's not a good way, like if they're fake spreading a disease, but what you're saying is they want you to at their economy to be better, and for some reason people are hesitating to use technology when they should be, so that our country can be more powerful. So I'm not sure if it's a strong argument, even if it was true. But it doesn't seem to be true, because so far the economy is being destroyed. It's a really risky approach. If it's maybe it's a real disease and somehow they spread it by purpose to encourage technology to be used. So that's my best answer. I'm trying to keep things within 10 minutes for now. Okay. Yeah. So that was sort of bait to encourage disagreement of some sort, because somebody said they would join and whatever. So I kind of went through the wrong order. I'm going to rewind and go through things in the right order I planned on. Happiness, alternative happiness ideas. What do you need to be successful? Okay, and I go through things on YouTube or people who are already popular. You can suggest people for me to look at. Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist, very popular with relatively young men, 20s, 30s, maybe 40s, because he's not politically correct. He sticks with loads of facts. He's a lecturer. He's, being a lecturer is not enough, but let's say he sticks with lots of facts. Really logical, and he's giving people a lot of guidance, which makes a lot of sense. And I would say a lot of it is very much in line with Islam. I'm gonna have a drink. 1 second. Maybe I'll pause. 1 second. Not pause. Sorry. Mute while I slurp my drink. Okay. So Jordan Peterson, what does he have to say? First of all, he said, and I'm going to come to this from an Islamic point of view. So, and part of the purpose of this question so loads of people were being successful, and a lot of stress occurs because people don't feel they're quite as successful as they could have been, and they wish that they had more direction. So this is very much to do with happiness. Okay, so and this is linked to finding a purpose that resonates with you personally. It felt like a question that came last time, and it kind of links to finding the perfect job. So all mashed up. Let's talk about those things all together. So one thing he suggests is what kind of person you are, which makes sense for a psychologist to say. And so he's got something called the Big Five. You can just YouTube that. Jordan Peterson Big Five, and he for one of those 5 types of characters or personality types, sorry, that we might have are extroversion. If you're an extrovert somebody likes to talk a lot, okay, if you know who you are, then you can better fit into society, or you can find ways to better fit into society. He's saying health is super important because your brain is your biggest asset, biggest skill, especially in the modern world, and it uses tons of energy, needs to be well oxygenated, as he says, and so you need to be keeping yourself healthy. And this is really interesting. You need to find a goal of who you want to be. So yeah, I really believe in thinking about your direction. You need to start thinking. Don't drive your life blindly or with your eyes blindfolded. Really dangerous. We've been given a brain, we should use it, right? But we don't think about our purpose or our direction, because that seems to be some vague and almost impossible question, like what's the meaning of life. For a lot of people that seems to be impossible, but for Muslims it's like really clear. And I keep repeating, the meaning of life is to connect with God, to be at one with God, and to do good things. Okay. Without purpose you become bitter. So there's a like clinical evidence through research that if you don't have a goal, you become bitter. And I've talked about Viktor Frankl, I think his name is, famous psychologist who wrote a book about purpose. And if you don't have purpose, that's like, purpose is a basic need of human beings. Doesn't look like it, right? You don't eat purpose, right? But when you reflect, you realize that you desperately need purpose. Like, you desperately need connection, but you don't eat connection, like love and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so, and treat yourself like you matter. These are such Islamic ideas. I think I said in the introduction. Okay, so I'll talk about that. But I'm going to talk about how Islam is a better way of doing things. Okay, not just that there's agreement, but Islam has better advice. Okay, so let's talk about this thing. So Islam separates people into two very different kinds or types of people: the jinn and the nas. Okay, jinn are these people who are known as, firstly, have fiery temperament. Actually, not firstly. I think one of the key qualities is that they're naturally the leaders. Okay, that doesn't mean like a prime minister necessarily. There could be a leader in industry, let's say a Steve Jobs or a, what's his name, Elon Musk kind of character, right? Okay, they have these a fiery temperament. If you know these people one to one, and if you research into these people, you will know they will have that quality. But nas, those are the normal kind of people. So your jinn are like your 1% or like less than 1%. So try not to concentrate on them too much. Your nas are your normal people, and their quality is they love to fit in, and they automatically fit in. They are known as people who are made of clay, or described in the Quran as people who are made of clay. They are malleable. They whatever society says, they don't even know they're doing it, but they automatically fit in. They're more sociable. Okay, the jinn, on the other hand, are not so sociable, and they're described as people who are independently minded. Of course, we can. Where am I getting all this from? It's in. Let me click it here. This on there's a website called Al Islam. You can search up jinn, maybe. Like if I click Holy Quran, you can find out all sorts of things about jinn, spelled Jinn. Let's make that super big. Press enter, and then you get loads of references. Let me zoom out when it finally loads. Okay, got loads of things, and I'm just telling you how to find out information for yourself. You can click on the verse number, and then I'm not sure, but I've got my settings so you get the 5-volume commentary in English. And then you click on the number that goes on the bottom, and you get like explanation about it. But if you don't have that as your setting, you just choose it there. Okay, so this show is very relaxing. It's maybe some people find it weird that kind of diverting into how to find out more information, but I want you not to be like, I want these question answer sessions just to be the beginning, because there is so much information out there already, and I want you to be enabled to get that information for yourself and get the information you need, and then you can ask me the small piddly bits that I haven't been able to answer. Okay, I'm just going to throw, before I forget, so that's the website, alislam.org. There's also this website, bigquestionsanswered.com, which is where you can watch the other shows that I'm doing, but also loads of other material, which actually just links to Al Islam as well, and places like that, videos, by the Khalifas. You've got much better answers than I have. Anyway, I'm trying to remember what I was talking about. Yeah, so I'm gonna really quickly. So these are the really better traits than worrying about extroversion, because you can be an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert. I don't like talking out, but I can be an extrovert. Okay, so I don't think those definitions actually help you in finding your direction in life. Because I'm always running out of time in my 10-minute slots that I've planned for myself, I'm going to be sort of quick. Oh, what did I say? Okay, all right. I'm just going to check if there's is there a question? I just heard some sound. Sorry, no, that was an email. Sorry. Okay, so very quickly, health. Islam is always talking about being healthy and taking care of yourself, and it's very much like along these lines. Treat yourself. There's a saying in Islam by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He says, um, "Yourself has a right upon you." It's a weird way of saying it. I've talked about why it's said that way, but basically, treat yourself nicely. So totally agree with Jordan Peterson there, and when he says something, it's like based on fact. It's not like just making this up. It's like psychological tests show that it's you need to treat yourself well psychologically so that you do better. What is it? I do actually recommend watching some of his videos. I think so. What to do to be successful, Jordan Peterson. Just YouTube it, and then you'll see stuff like that. Although this thing I got from another video about finding purpose or something like that. Anyway, goal setting. Okay, so I'm gonna. It's good to think about your future, but Islam has got a much better goal setter. Says everybody has a goal in their lives that dominates their thinking and their time, whatever. But you, Muslims, if you're a real believer, you should make competing and doing good things your goal. Okay. Now I want to quickly show you, demonstrate to you, sort of through some quick logic, that will actually make you happier and more successful. If you are trying to do good things for people, you become okay. If you want to run a successful business, you need to be in the business of helping people. If you don't have something that helps people, then you don't have a business. You haven't got something to sell, right? That's what business is about, trading something of use, trying to get my hand into the screen, okay, for money. So if you're in the habit of helping people, that's going to be good. If you're in the habit of helping people, you also learn empathy because you're interacting with people. If you're not helping people, you're in your tiny room by yourself, learning nothing about the world, you're not going to have a very good business. You're going to be miserable as well because you're disconnected, all that kind of stuff. All right. I think I've gone way over the time limit I said I was spend on that. Yeah, so I'm just to quickly summarize. Know yourself, what kind of person you are. See, I try to be relaxed on myself as well because I know I start explaining things and then I don't fully explain them at all. And that's why it's good to have loads and loads of shows and you can question me. So one of the reasons why I picked out this whole, one of the two key personality types that the Quran talks about is because they have very different paths in life. Okay. So basically, jinn, the leaders, effectively run businesses. Okay. And they have to suffer from a lot more hardship before success. They have more extremes. Okay. They will be outcast most of the time. So they'll be like, I'm trying to draw a graph and I've just realized that there's no bottom to the graph. They'll be at the bottom for most of the time. So there's great TED Talks about this. They don't call it jinn at all. There's a great TED Talks about what we call originals. I can't remember. He does two TED Talks, this guy. He talks about originals. And basically says that if you're one of these kind of leader type personalities, you're either at the bottom, the people who are game changers, yeah, and then they become at the top. They don't fit in between because they don't fit in the normal bandwidth of how society functions. Okay, society functions mainly for normal people, right? Okay, so NASA, like steady eddies, let's say call them, they're not going to become billionaires, all right, because they're not going to do something that is so out of the box that changes the world, that makes that money. Okay, but they can do pretty well. Okay, but they also, if you want to do really well, you go through kind of hardships for a long time, and then you excel near the end once you kind of success breeds success, kind of. That's why it's kind of at the end. Okay, or kind of in the middle, depends how safe you play. So they have very different paths, and being aware that you have different paths is important, because sometimes you watch these Elon Musk and say, I wish I was me, Elon Musk, but maybe you're just not that personality type, and you don't need billions of pounds to live comfortably anyway, so you don't need that. It's just the reason why these people make money is not really to do with money. Okay, we'll talk about it another time. Okay, if you want. Right. Okay. Yes. So successful people, and in religion, we talk about the process or systems and not the goals. Let me explain that. Okay, I'll say whatever comes to my mind. So, in there's I don't even watch basketball, but apparently the most successful basketball coach ever would say something like this. He did say something like this, whatever his name is. He would say he didn't really care about the number of goals scored in a given basketball match. He was more concerned that you do everything in your power, and beforehand, the practice and everything it takes to become successful. And that's what successful people do. They're all about the process. There's some brilliant videos about getting 1% better. They're all about everything that happens before, and then that build up is the thing that makes you successful. So if you're looking for a job, whatever, all these things are changing. They're all dynamic and whatever. But if you work on the process, if you every day take a positive step, you're getting yourself in a better position. Okay, so guidance for the lost. There's a great, I'll be very quick about it. I'm going to spend 1 minute since there's a comment. Yeah, I'll spend like 30 seconds on this, and then I'm going to go to the comment and answer the question. Okay, so guidance for the lost. Believe, do good, spread. Okay, yeah. So there's a chapter in the Quran for people who feel lost. It's supposed to be directed at the latter days. Wal asr innal insan lafi usrin. I am one of the last chapters. Basically, it goes. Basically, the guidance is if you are lost, those people who don't, who are lost, they should do the following to get out of feeling lost. So you could call it depression or whatever you want to call it. Okay, you got to believe in God, do good things. I always say this thing, but and they're all put in order. Spread the truth. That's kind of the best kind of good you can do, because you're telling people how to avoid lots of other misery by spreading truth. And then when you spread truth, you gotta know it's all about patience, because nobody listens straight away. Anyway, let's get on to this thing here. Thank you, Planet Adams. Duality, jinn, and normal can change. Okay, so I think I'm always, when you comment something, I always personally, maybe my own weakness, I don't always understand it, so I will try to explain it the way I understand your question. I think what you're saying is, can you change if you're a jinn personality? Can you become a normal personality? And it is no, not as far as I know. There's no evidence from what I read in the Quran that you can change personality types. You're either this type or you're that type. So let me back it up a little bit. There's an interesting interaction between a jinn personality type known as Iblis, I think, and Adam. And there were Yeah. So in that interaction, the Jin personality type says, I can't follow this Adam guy because he's of the Nas and I'm better than him. I'm made out of fire. So whatever that means. So we can talk about what that means, but it seems to be like he's describing himself and saying like, this is who I am, and that's who he is. If it was interchangeable, if you could go between being a Jin and a Nas, I think that would not be a sound argument. Yeah, so not vice versa. So I don't these are essential personality types. These are who you are and you stay like that. So that might upset a few people, I imagine, because they're like, I really want to be a big shot entrepreneur, but you can tell you're not a big shot entrepreneur, like if you're not always in trouble or you're not off the grain in your normal lifestyle. Because it's not like you're not an entrepreneur like when you're only at work. It's like you are an entrepreneur. You're that kind of person all the time in everything you do. People know that you're different. People should be able to tell you that you really stand out, and the way you do things, even in the shops and wherever you go, you stand out. Okay, thank you for participating. Really appreciate it. You make the show a bit better, much better probably. And peace be upon you. Have a great week, and I'll catch you next week, 7 p.m., 7 to 8 p.m. every Friday, UK time. Please join me. Assalamu